Hi, my name is Michelle Escoffery. I'm a singer-songwriter and also president of the Members Council at PRS for Music. We are here today speaking to some of the UK's leading thought leaders and music industry execs as part of PRS for Music's Black History Month curation. So, how this is going to go today is that some of these people are family, some of these people are friends, and we are going to just cut up the fat and have a real conversation. But what I would like to do is ask all of you to introduce yourselves and what you do in the music industry.
Okay, well, my name's Deb Mckoy. As you introduce yourself as a singer-songwriter, I think I should claim it a bit more. I'm a rapper-songwriter.
Ah, nice.
So that's how I started out. I'm now the CEO and co-founder of Hardest Bars, which is on Link Up TV. They're our media partners. And we do all things rap, basically, predominantly UK, but now we branched out more internationally. That's what I do.
Nice, thank you.
Amazing. I'm Komali, Scott Jones. I'm an A&R co-founder of the Black Music Coalition and the Debrief. I think that's all the things. And I run a clothing brand called King's Ransom London.
Okay.
Nice. Very nice. I'm Adem. I'm head of contemporary music at the South Bank Centre. Put on gigs.
I like that.
Nice.
And you sing.
But
We're not allowed to say that.
We don't. That's not really.
We don't say it now.
Well, we're just in the shower.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm Riki Bleau, co-president of Since 93 Records, MD of Since 93 Management and Since 93 Publishing.
And I'm Jacqueline Pelham-Leigh, they call me JPL, and what don't I do? I think I'm going to claim it as well. I started out as a rapper and went on to be a producer and got into A&R publishing, and now I work at the PRS as a relationship manager for Black music.
Sound. My name's Lovelace Owusu, and I'm an artist manager of Heady One and RV. And there we have it for now.
All right, so let's get into it. So, the first question I want to ask is, how has Black culture and Black music impacted your life? What do you love about your culture?
It is my life.
Yeah,
Okay.
simple.
It's just, I grew up on it, I live it. I think it's in like the bones of me and my identity, who I am, like what I relate to. It's impacted everything that I do. And I think, especially now working in music, working with Black artists, having that extend into your living as well. I think it's super important. I think it's had a massive effect on British history, British culture, and kind of birthed it in this country, to be honest. I don't really think that there's a youth culture here without Black people in this country.
Yeah, I don't know how you separate like being Black and growing up listening to music, whether it be reggae or calypso, which was what my parents were literally playing. It's just been there since day one. So it's just who you are, isn't it? An extension of how you think, how you see things, what's cool, what's not, what you like, what you don't like. It's everything. Yeah.
For me, it's almost like asking me, how do I breathe? You don't think about breathing, do you? You just have to do it to survive. So for me, that's what, it's just who I am.
I don't think I'd have an identity really thinking about it now without Black culture, without Black music. Sort of growing up, both of my parents were married to white partners.
Okay.
So I had a little bit of an identity crisis, sort of trying to find my place. And I think I found my place through Black music, especially when rap, I think I discovered rap when I was about 10, 11.
Okay.
And I think for me, and it was through Tim Westwood, I think on radio. I was like tuning in late at night, just listening to this music that was just like, it just captivated me. And I think at that time it gave me a real sense of identity, and especially sort of like going through my teen years, becoming quite rebellious and that sort of thing. I think for me, it kind of gave me a voice. It was a way to kind of express some of what I was feeling that I wasn't able to articulate in any other way. And from that point, sort of like leaving school quite early at 15, like being bad basically, it was just sort of like, okay, well I can be a rapper. I don't need qualifications for this. And so that's literally shaped my whole life.
Okay. Okay.
I think for me, it's like how I understood the world. So it was less, it helped me to make sense of how I fit into the world, and kind of, hearing in lyrics, in music, people have experiencing things or having questions or ideas that I had, and going, oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
That's how I think how I made sense of the world around me.
What about you, Lovelace?
It kind of shaped me into the person I am today, especially growing up from where I was from. Like, the music weren't too positive, but I had some positive other influences around me. But it's just made me who I am today.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Both of you touched on authenticity, so I want to ask the question: how do you bring your authentic self into what you do, or do you feel like you need to dilute yourself to be accepted, or do you bring full fat?
In the beginning, I felt like I had to.
Dilute.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the beginning, and by
Why?
that, it wouldn't have been easy for anyone to accept my raw self and what came with my raw self in this industry. I didn't feel it was anyway. I can't bring my brethrens here. It's not gonna work. Do you see what I'm saying? It's just not gonna work, and I knew that then. But I think that, like, my dad had always instilled in me that, like, there's a time for everything. Not everywhere you go do you bring all your brethrens anyway.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So you've got to.
As
Like
Komali
Komali always
says,
says,
you
read
dress
the room.
appropriately for the party.
Yeah, you've got to you've got to work it out. But there are, like, so as I say, first coming into this industry, I would go everywhere by myself because I wanted everyone else to feel comfortable. Don't worry about me. That was my thinking. I don't want you to worry about me at all. I don't want that barrier into it. Because in our cultures, the first thing someone's to ask you is where you're from,
Yes.
and that may determine.
That's so true.
It may determine whether they even
How they're
work
gonna
with you
deal
or
with
not,
you or not.
or how comfortable they
Yes.
are.
Yeah.
But when people get accustomed to just seeing you, I was Riki Bleau from Channel U. No one asked me where I was from.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
swear to God,
interesting.
no one ever asked me where I was from because I was from Channel U.
Yeah.
Subconsciously in their mind, that's where I was from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyone was fine to meet me or whatever else, and then I had to just follow through in providing experiences that came with no nonsense,
Yeah.
so people don't worry about you. Do you get what I'm saying? It took years for me to be able to feel comfortable to say, that's where I'm from, or whatever else, and it surprised a lot of people because, they never knew. Not that it mattered, because in the end it didn't matter, but it could have mattered
Absolutely.
if you were
Yeah.
walking with that in front of you.
Yeah.
And then even separately to that, like, at Channel U was when I met Tim and Danny, and they taught me about publishing. I knew nothing about that world. And now I've met two older black men who have an opinion on, pull your trousers up, you're wearing your trousers low and rare tear. And I'm being taught that I've got to move a certain way because, by the way, they're walking me into Guy Moot's office to play Labyrinth's music for him to sign him.
Yeah.
You're walking into the president's office. You've got to.
Yeah.
So straight away, I'm not that I'm saying I have to wear but I'm a young man. That's what we do.
Yeah.
But I realized that I can't do that.
In that
I knew,
space.
or I should say, I felt that if I decided that, you know what, I wanted to just lock up my hair and move a certain way, I also thought that may come with resistance to people. So I've got to keep it smooth and I've got to keep it. You with me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so there's always a form of code switching.
Do you feel like you've had to dilute yourself?
Yeah, early
Or are you
days.
bringing your whole authentic self?
What, early on or as of now?
Either or. Early on, you felt
early
like you
on-
did have to do that early days?
Yeah, early days I did have to because of the stigma behind my area and all the controversy that my artist as well brought. So it's like I couldn't really be myself, but at the same time I had to because I had nothing else behind me. I had no other experience other than to showcase myself for my artist. So yeah, early on, but now I could walk in the room as myself and say I'm Lovelace, innit? So yeah, early on, but
How
now
long did that take? How long did that kind of period take?
a few years, I say 2-3 years, when he started getting some radio life and he was showcasing himself a bit more, speaking, doing interviews, because even that barrier was kind of hard to break because no one wanted to be with him or around him because they had this stigma on him that he was a guy from North London and comes with a lot of baggage, and so nowadays it's all good.
Let me come to this side. What about any of you guys in terms of
Um,
authenticity?
Authenticity. I think early on I had to get out there and network, just even to find producers and stuff like that. I was a young mum, had 2 sons, was literally writing bars at home, spitting over popular tracks. There were no instrumentals, and I was like, how am I ever going to find instrumentals? How am I going to get my own stuff down? So it's a lot of networking, just like leaving voice ads in the back of the loot and stuff like that, because there was like a little voice thing back then, and then like producers contacting me and sort of like, and every time I networked with someone, I'd be like, what other producers do you know? Who else do you know? And then just kind of like built up that way. Before I knew it, I had like a whole demo tape and everything else. But yeah, I think my real break sort of like came around sort of garage days, and I ended up getting like signed to Virgin and everything else. But around that period, I didn't feel as though I needed to adjust myself. I was still a bit of a rebel, and like I was making money doing what I was doing, so I felt sort of like I had that sort of arrogance maybe, which wasn't a good thing. So I was a little bit arrogant, so even if someone said, look, you need to calm it down a bit, I probably would have shouted at them. So, and I think that's what maybe rap music allowed me to do, because that had become my voice, and it was a rebellious voice, and I think that's probably why I kind of like gravitated towards it. So it was something that allowed me to always be who I was. But yeah, I think maybe now I've just become a little bit more refined, but that's just an age thing. But no, I've never felt as though I've needed to compromise myself. And I was very conscious of that, like for the reasons why I said earlier. I was always very conscious of that, so I always wanted to be in rooms where I could be completely myself.
Okay, so I want to ask a question about pigeonholing. So for me as a songwriter, when I think after being an artist and actually going into songwriting, I found it quite challenging wanting to write pop music and wanting to do other than R&B, gospel. It was like, oh no, we're going to put you in with this guy because they do R&B, and I'm like, really? I felt that I was fortunate that when I signed to EMI, I had an A&R that pushed those boundaries and put me with loads of different people. And his thought was, a good songwriter is a good songwriter. You should be able to really write anything. So I was really fortunate in that way. As A&Rs, are you aware now of pigeonholing? And does that work in the reverse as well for yourself? If you're trying to put a writer into a room, or when you're developing an artist, are you thinking wide lens, or have you been in situations where you've thought, okay, well, this is only going to work for this? Does that make sense? Jay?
Okay, no, go on, Jay, go.
I think often it depends on the creative, because it's about what is their vision. If somebody tells me they want to be a pop star, then we're starting from ground zero. That's what we're going for.
Right.
You know, so whether we're doing it through the black music route, whatever field, doesn't bother me. Like if somebody tells me, look, I just want to be, I just want to do spoken word. You're going to be the best at spoken word. So we're gonna be appropriate in how we're going to do this. I think for me, a great song's a great song. So even though I worked as a producer, production can always change. So I'm always about how are we going to get the best song we can. So for me, it's almost like alchemy when you're putting people in a room together. You pray that it works. And sometimes you think, some things you think are going to work won't work. And some things you think won't work. And it's amazing. The only time I've ever felt pigeonholed was in like 2020, and Komali and Riki can attest to this, when I became a manager of an act. Like I felt like a black woman and not as woman king. Like, oh really? Is this how you guys treat us? Interesting. We're gonna have to change that.
From my perspective as an A&R, for me, I think the time that I came into the industry properly in terms of labels and this side of things, I think there was the most kind of merit and power than there's ever been to be young, black, British, because of how music changed in the mainstream. And so in like 2016, 2017, when all of this was bubbling, these companies didn't have people that looked like us that could go and meet Lovelace and Hedy in North
Yeah.
and not get run out. Do you know what I mean? No, but that's a fact. Like, they would be like, oh, we don't know where to start. And so, like, there was a lot of power in us being ourselves in that way, which just hadn't happened in the same way before. Like Riki was saying, like, you had to, some more than others, like, kind of shrink to fit and make sure that you weren't too intimidating to this, to that. And so for me, I've not felt the need to make myself that small. I think that comes down to me though, a lot of it, just because, I'm just like confident in who I am and my
I think
opinions
that's because you
and
grew
stuff.
up in music as well, so you see.
I don't know. I'm not really sure. I think it's just me, and I just think what I think, and I also have been lucky to be around different types of people, so it's not intimidating to me to be in a room like that, a boardroom, and it's just like I've met you before. I've had teachers, I don't know, bosses, whatever. Like I don't feel like I had to make myself smaller, but I do actually think that code switching is important in the same way that like you wouldn't talk to your mum or dad the same way that you would talk to like your brethren. Like you just out of respect.
Yeah,
and like,
laying that back. I'm trying to talk to my mum like she's my brethren.
wouldn't happen. And I do think that it can go like a little bit too far the other way, where it's like, oh, I want to be my authentic self all the time. It's like, yeah, but you know what? Sometimes it's like, nobody's trying to hear that when we're at work.
Yeah.
Like, and it's actually all right to.
And it's normal.
And
Right,
As you say, it's normal.
I think it's a good thing to do that. But I feel the pigeonholing thing, I have experienced that because I do think because they needed us to be black and British and young and popping, then it's just like, oh yeah, that's what you do. And that's it. And so you can't have any knowledge outside of that. You can't, they feel uncomfortable if you can show something outside of that, because then it's like, oh, that's not all you know or all you can operate in. And I've been very conscious of, like, I love black music, like I said, like, it's amazing, and I'm so lucky to be in a time where it is commercially, making
But you're a
strides.
songswoman, I can speak for that. You're a
But
songswoman, you like good songs.
I just love a good song.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that part of where we're from though? Being that like
Yes.
being black and being British,
yes.
you have the best of both worlds in the sense that culturally you're going to have all of the great cultural music we've got, but then we've also got, not so much for your age, but we've also got Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
So I never
100%,
felt so I never felt like a great pop song was something I shouldn't have anything to do with.
Exactly.
You see what I mean?
Which
It was
is
all
important.
So
part
true.
of it. So coming into the business and working with, to say, with Tim and Danny and having the scope to just do what I felt. All of it was on the table, if that made sense. And if you look at the different creatives that I ended up working with, from Labyrinth to Naughty Boy to Emily Sandé to Sam Smith and the others in between it's all parts of that same thing. It can go as pop as that, or it can be as underground as Fredo and Lowski, like, and it's everything in between. But all of it is naturally. It's natural to the palate. None of it is, oh my God, we can't be doing that.
Yeah, but I feel like there is a unspoken energy that is just like, oh, well, what do you know about that? And
No,
why do you know that music? And I'm just like, and sometimes it's like, oh, you're too young to know what that song is, whatever. But sometimes it's just like, oh, well, and I do think that it does exist, but you just have to be strong enough to just flex your knowledge and say, oh, like, yeah, when I went to this, I don't know, in your case, Adem, like, went to this live show, and you can use it as a reference. And I think it's quite nice to shock people like that, because they do have an expectation of you only knowing a certain remit or a certain part of music. I just think you should
I can see how that happens in those systems when you come up in those systems. And being that I've never been in those systems, I've always worked with them, but I've never been in the system.
Exactly.
So I never had the pigeonholing, because the people who I had to, if you like, get approval from were two black men who were breaking boundaries. So I wasn't given any boundaries. I could do anything, if that made sense.
Yeah.
I was coming into my job. I've only been in it about 4 weeks, and I was really, but kind of before that, I've always focused on black music, black live music, and so coming into National Arts Centre, I was. It's funny because I love black music so much, and it's like such a part of who I am and what I care about. But I was nervous, especially in the interview process, that there might be a perception that it stops there, and actually it doesn't. Like it's about our imagination and culture and creativity. But I was definitely nervous that people wouldn't understand. The people that I needed buy-in from wouldn't. And luckily that's not the case.
Okay, so I've got maybe 2 questions to ask you. I want to ask you about the 696 Festival and what was behind that. What influenced you to do that? Let me start there first.
So the 696 programme was at the Horniman Museum where I was working. Horniman's in South East London. It's got the biggest collection of musical instruments in the country. In the middle of South East London, like one of the best music scenes on its doorstep, but like historically had no relationship to it. So I wanted to create one, and was thinking about that and the relationship between Black live music and public space, and what does it mean, and how do you do that in a way that feels genuine, and was thinking a lot about Form 696, which, if you're not familiar, was a Metropolitan Police risk assessment form. That it was in for about 10 years, 2008 to 2017, and non-compliance with this form would result in your event license potentially being pulled. And after 10 years, there was a realization that it disproportionately affected Black live music. So it's one of the ways in which Black live music was pushed out of public space. So I wanted to acknowledge that, but what I thought was important to also acknowledge was that despite that, our music has gone on to impact the world, and it's some of the best, as we've been saying, some of the best music out there. So I wanted to celebrate kind of what had happened during that period in spite of 696. So the festival and the exhibition, I should actually say the award winning.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please say that.
Let them know.
Yeah.
Yes, winning.
Yeah, it was about celebrating like the promoters, the artists, the creatives who have been like doing amazing stuff since.
And in terms of public funding, historically we know that statistically Black people get funded way less in those spaces. How is that, or have you seen any change in that in recent times with this whole kind of diversity drive and the push for equity and equality? Have you seen any real change in that funding structure?
I don't know if I can answer it. I don't know if I've got enough information to accurately say, yeah, it's got better.
Yeah.
I think equity is really important. Like, so if you think about something like 696, for 10 years, it was almost impossible to put on certain genres of music.
Yeah.
Just going, oh, now we're going to have enough gigs wouldn't even be the solution, because the pipeline for promoters didn't exist. You know, how many Black promoters are there in this country working at a level of venues over 1,000 capacity? Like, not very many of us.
Yeah.
So there's work to be done there, let alone even thinking about just the kind of amount of funding that's going to particular things. It's actually about
infrastructure.
Yeah, and addressing the impact of things like that, I think.
And I think the problem we have here, and why we're behind America, is that we don't have ownership on a lot of things we should have ownership on. And
Expand,
I think that,
please, elaborate.
So in the respect, like, if we owned our own terrestrial TV station, then certain dialogues and certain films and certain things could be done. Radio, if we owned it, then certain things could be done. You know, we're lucky that certain people are in labels now and have their own labels, or whatever, you know what I mean? But even that, there needs to be more of that. And don't even get me started on the position of the Black woman. And why aren't there more senior executives? Why is it like, okay, you know, you've got to this ceiling, you should be good. They're there, pat you on the back, that should be great. Have you read our CVs? You know, like...
You're too overqualified.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's still like the 1970s when my mum's turning up to Midland Bank, which is now HSBC, and they've seen the English name and they've seen a Black woman sitting out there, and then they've gone back into the manager and said, oh, it's a Black woman, and they've left her sitting there for half an hour. And it's like, they've come out and said, oh, you're overqualified for this role. Well, you didn't know that when you asked her to come in for the interview? Yeah. But I can see that happening even with your generation, Komali. Like, you know what I feel you should be doing.
Yeah.
Riki's come in and said the same thing. So when we talk, we've made a real great stride. We haven't made great strides. Like, Why do I have to over-explain myself to get a point across? That's quite simple, because I speak English very well, by the way.
But like you say, it's down to ownership, though,
Yeah.
isn't it? So I think we just need to kind of pull together a little bit more and just say, okay, what needs to be addressed and how can we come together to kind of address that? And just kind of like, just put our money where our mouth is, really. And I think a lot of the time it is sort of maybe trying to break down these walls, but we're trying to enter to these establishments when, like you say, in America, they just kind of built their own, didn't they?
Do you know, I think the American thing is a really important thing, and I think timing is also a good gauge.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that we're like 20 years behind America. I've always felt that, and I feel like when we started our label, at the point when me and Glenn started since 93 Records, Darkest had left to go to Star Island, and we were one of the first, I think, 2 labels that were JB's and Black Lead, right? And to me, that meant we was in 1993 when Diddy was starting Bad Boy.
Absolutely.
That was
Absolutely.
2017.
Golden
Yeah.
era.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So it's like, what's going to happen in the next 15 years? Because I remember a time where if a UK artist could sell out, what was that venue in Shoreditch? The venue,
Not Cargo.
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 If you could sell 500 tickets in Cargo,
Yeah.
and you could sell 2,000 copies of your project,
Yeah.
you was the guy.
Yeah.
And I've stood on at Murky Fest and watched a youth having a concert in a whole next country. You get what I'm saying? And when I'm watching it, I'm in amazement at what's possible and how we can't observe that and say nothing's changed.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't. The change is crazy, but to have had as much change as we've had and still be true that there's so much more to be done just tells you where we are.
Yeah.
But there has been a lot of development, and I just think if you ask yourself what the next generation are going to do, because if you go with me in saying that we are where we are, it means Jay-Z hasn't arrived yet.
It's
by
true.
By
comparison.
comparison. Yeah.
So there's so much more to happen.
Yeah.
Do
Exactly.
you see what I mean? But sometimes we're so stuck we can be so stuck looking at today and looking at today versus what's going on over there, but we're not there. We're at another stage. So it's
Stage.
the next, what's going to happen in the next 15, 20 years? It's going to be a madness.
Well, I was going to ask you, Lovelace, in terms of management, what do you feel is like the new school rules? How are you breaking boundaries?
Right now, I feel like a lot of boundaries have been broken for us
Okay.
due to the likes of Riki and some other leading black execs. But right now, there's not much to be broken because I said everything's broken already. But as we keep pushing and striving and all our acts become bigger, I'm sure naturally the doors will open for us to do bigger things, i.e. like get bigger budgets for the next gen, and like all the new kids that are coming through, for example, they're getting crazy checks, they're getting 6-figure checks due to, I say, what my artist would have broke a few years ago because we were stuck behind certain doors where we couldn't get 6-figure videos and all of that. So I think over time, as we continue to work harder and come together, things will open up for us, I guess.
But what I like about this generation as well, they're very much like F your red tape. You know, we had a red tape.
Yeah.
You know, I'm lucky I had Lincoln Lanice as one of my mentors, so there was no tape for me, but I can see that people had red tapes.
Yeah.
This generation was like, screw your red tape, we've got our gold tape, our platinum tape, so you're either coming along or you're getting left because you're old.
And it's interesting though,
You know
because
what I mean?
when you touched upon earlier that, you had to do some, in terms of your presentation, you had to be careful in terms of how you presented yourself, right?
Yeah.
So clearly, even for Lovelace and his generation, they feel that they have to, adjust to fit in the beginning, because from where I'm standing, it looked like you just walked straight in. I say that to say this. It's easy for me to view it that way because I'm looking at the 10 problems that we had, but the 10 problems by the time you've come around might be free. So you make it look. It looks so easy. So even hearing you say that this is what you had to do is informing for me, because from where I'm standing, it looks simpler. If you get what I'm saying. So it's good to actually have that kind of understanding. And don't get me wrong, I can understand I can understand, as you say it, it's clear, as you say it, but without you saying it, I wouldn't necessarily think of it like that, if you see what I mean. But as you say, it's not, well, of course it would be, because there's always barriers to entry of some sorts. You with me? Just because some of them aren't there anymore that were when you were there, doesn't mean all of them are gone. Because they're not all gone.
And I think technology's kind of afforded a lot of new artists that access as well, because if you've got a million streams online, or you know, like whatever it is, views or likes, or that a big number of followers, straight away it's just like, okay, well, there's a demand for this. Whereas back in the day, we would have to go out there and kind of prove that, you know, like people wanted this. It's like, how would we even prove? They'd have to take a chance on us. They'd have to sign us, and then, okay, it's not working out, then we'd get shelved or whatever. But now it's just like the evidence is right there, isn't it? So
there are challenges that Lovelace's generation clearly do have to navigate. And I must say, I think that a lot of your generation, I think they've done brilliant jobs at building businesses, and their artists have evolved in ways, like I was making jokes earlier about Paris, but it's like it's beautiful to actually see that the world is the oyster for this generation. I speak to a lot of these young rappers, and they're spending so much time in other parts of the world now because A, they can afford it, B, the access is there, and you know, the world is just that. We couldn't look beyond. You're going to Birmingham, you're going to Manchester. That was like, you know what I'm saying? You're going to Paris for what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's a.
And you're not staying either. You're going. You're doing it and coming back in the ride and back home.
Yeah. So watching the involvement and that, but you've also got to have, like, he naturally has, but he has to have that mindset to want to learn, be better, grow. Not everyone has that. Do you see what I mean? So, you know, commending to you and your team.
I was also just going to say one more thing about what barriers you lot have broken, because for me, when I see Hedy like just talk anywhere, and like he's just got a wicked personality in it, and just even to be able to see versions of artists that do a certain type of music that come with a certain expectation of the kind of lifestyle that you live or what you're like, or do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't say anything, but it's like Hedy's one of the funniest artists that we've got. He's not even trying to be, and I think even that in itself, the generation of artists that I guess like we've come up like seeing and working with, I think that we can't even quantify how important that is for everyone that's going to come after, because that means same way that we felt like, oh, we had to move a certain way in the beginning. It's like artists now realize that the more I am myself, the more successful I can be. Do you know what I mean? And I think that lesson in, just like being confident as Black British young people and artists and creatives and in general, it's just like, oh, like that is actually what's going to get me ahead. It's not pretending to be from here or talking like this or dressing like that. And for me, like watching how that has changed over the years, I think is probably one of my favourite things. Like,
but then blaming ourselves.
Because and the same way that I don't know, I'm not an American fan. Like I think a lot of people are, and they're like, oh yeah, we should just be like America. And I just think, I don't know, I think that's just air in it. I don't think in itself that's a. I don't think that's a real thing to say, because it's two different countries, two different sets of circumstances, and I think we also underestimate the fact that England taught America everything they know about race relations, about how we're treated, where we fall in the hierarchy. Like they actually started it. So the issues that we like, people go, oh, it's so much worse in America. It's like I wouldn't. You can't even say it's not. It's not like the trauma Olympics. Like it's air, but
and we're subtle with it here.
No, exactly, and that comes with its own its own things that we have to deal with. But so for me, I think that. When I speak to Americans, they're always like, oh my God, but you lot are just like, you're popping, you've got this culture and you've got this happening. And I feel, maybe it's more so now than maybe it was before, but like, I feel more confident being Black and British than probably ever, because I know that they don't have that. They don't know who they're, and they don't like, if you ask an American where they're from, they'll tell you their door number before they can say, oh, my grandparents came from here or there. Whereas we're much closer to our lineage still, because we're newer in this country, you know what I mean? And like the value that brings and how that affects the music that we're making, the visuals that we're creating, where, our perspectives and stuff, I think that is a USP in itself. And once we learn to export that properly, I personally think that like what you're saying, the next 15, 20 years, it's going to be so
and it's just cycles,
unseen,
by the way.
Exactly what we've done.
In a generation before, soul to soul, and the exporting of superstars from England to the rest of the world is not a new concept.
It's not new.
That's been happening for years. And there was a time, the whole, whether it's the funky dread movement, whether it's lovers rock, there has been several times where America has been following what's happening.
Exactly.
It just wasn't in my time.
Yeah. And it's like what Wyclef said to me in '96. Oh, we come here. We come here and come to the UK.
I mean, if you listen to Drake, man, it's
well, drill music
UK.
is the
That's
newest
UK.
version of that of influence. I've never seen from a kid listening to rap music to today, I've never seen a time where American rap is being influenced remotely by what's happening in England, like it is now with the number
York
of producers
as well.
in UK.
I said the New York artists right now, they're big on that. They're capitalising on UK
These
sales.
most rappers, American rappers, only care about UK rappers when they've got their UK show. You come out. Because I've got, I'm on the pulse of what's happening there. You're happening there, let me bring you out. But the transaction's been very different, and it's such a shame. May soul rest in peace, Pop Smoke. I think
he was going to be such a bridge.
100%.
And he already was such a bridge, but
and there will be more. But he got it, and I think he was a great representation of that because he very much looked up to, not just. He saw them as peers. He wasn't. He didn't think he was above them. You with me?
Yeah.
And I think 2020 helped with that. COVID, it made the world a lot smaller. Made the world a lot smaller. So people you couldn't get to, you could get to, whether it was executives, whether it was artists, and it's changed the landscape. And I think that's helped these kids with this tape as well, because they can DM a guy. You did a record for whoever. And if he likes what voice note you sent him, take this beat pack.
Things are more accessible. So what does evolution look like for black music culture, and how do we elevate it?
We need more black-owned music venues. We need more black promoters. We need more infrastructure in black live music, so that the creativity can be more ambitious, I think.
And to touch on what you said earlier, Komali, it's difficult to not look at America because they're ahead of us. To look for what the future, because I think the future looks like what you've seen happen already, right? Because history, it just repeats itself. It's cyclical, right? And just to qualify the whole thing, it does not in the sense that you have to look up to people, because the truth of the matter is the difference between us and them is that there's 60 million of us and there's 380 of them. That's why their market is what it is. It's not because they're better. You're talking to more people than I am.
And that's where my gripe comes in. It's just like they're not comparable on every level, but definitely can draw,
because you can scale it down.
Exactly.
You can scale it down like for like, and you can see what the true impact is.
Yes.
Can I throw something else in there though? I feel like a lot of creatives now are not even looking to America really. They're looking, to West Africa. You're looking at how Afrobeats have just exploded all over the world. Is America really the place that people are looking?
That's such a good question.
I'm just putting it up there.
No, because I had this conversation with someone, and I was saying growing up in this industry, so maybe 10 years ago, your future meant, in order to have a successful future, you had to end up in America. It wasn't even a debate. It was you were doing everything you were doing to get to the point where you could go to realize your dreams.
Be recognised enough so that you could go to the States.
And that was a lot of people's benchmarks. Always was a lot of people's benchmarks as to when you get to America. And I do have a theory that it may just be when I get to Africa now for people in time to come. I'm not really that, but I personally am not that bothered about America in that way.
Yeah, for me, the future looks like Africa, just because of the young population that they have there. I think I saw some figures. I think by 2030, I think about 80% of the African population is going to be sort of like under 18 or something like that. It was ridiculous numbers. And in terms of the impact that they've made over there, and there's no infrastructure there. So I think we look to America because of the numbers that it's achieved historically. And
that's
because, I think there are bigger numbers in Africa, but there's just not the infrastructure right now. So I think give it sort of like 10, 15 years for that infrastructure to be put in place. And I really think it looks like America, because it's really about the diaspora, and I think that sound, it's like such a melting pot now. It's a bit of dancehall, it's a bit of rap, it's a bit, like it's everything we're familiar with. So I think Africa's the place to house that, in my opinion anyway.
I agree.
Interesting. Okay, who are the front runners pushing boundaries and innovating in our industry today? Who are you guys calling out as front runners? Who are you excited about?
Cat Burns was at South Bank a little while ago, and for me it was so special seeing someone, a black queer artist who was just being themselves, like singing telling their stories. And for me, as a black queer person, to see that from a young artist it was incredible. Who was just comfortable, at ease, doing their thing that's what I'd say. That was really special.
Yeah, because for me, she's like Joan Armour Trading. Like when I was growing up listening to that, we haven't had one since Joan Armour Trading. Do you know what I mean? She's a future Ivors winner. Do you know what I mean? She's a future Grammy winner. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that because Riki's sitting here. I'm just saying that's the,
Please.
Yeah, you know.
Amen.
I remember Ginger playing me a demo she did with her, which Ginger was the first person to show me her. I'm like, oh my God, that girl's gonna blow, right? And I remember, this is 2019, and I remember telling people about this, and they looked at me like, you're mad. And I said, we don't have her at the moment, so she's going to blow. You just need that song. You just need that song. Okay. So when I'm just thinking, like, how old is she now? What, 19, 20?
20, yeah. When Glenn first came in and played those records, I was like, raw.
Can you imagine what she's going to be like at 25? Oh my word! I hope I'm here to see it. I hope I'm here to see it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting young talent I see in terms of young executives, managers, and I think people are also rewriting what the rules are to some degree. So you're used to this structure, and a man's turning around and saying, well, actually, I need this or I need it that way, and a lot of that is happening. So I can't at this moment, I can't point to a particular person who's doing it, but I feel like that generation are doing it. Anyway, just what I mean? Like, I feel like they're really pushing things forward and doing things that we didn't know could be done.
Interesting. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with Riki. I think there's just it's just a new mindset that just feels less caught up in titles and who you work for and like your value in that. And I think that makes space to just focus on what needs to be done. So yeah, I've got like my colleagues and peers who it's like, yeah, cool, I do A&R here, but I also run a management company and we look after these 5 producers, an actor, couple singers, couple writers, and oh yeah, like with Triple Platinum this week, or and it feels like, oh, so we don't have to just be this one thing, and only be achieving in one place, and only have value in yourself in one way, and just be encouraged to just think outside the box and just not follow all the rules that were put on us that I think stop the growth of things. And I think just in this country as well, like kind of back to the American thing, there's the difference in how we move is also because of, the English way of being and stiff upper lip and don't get above your station and do you know what I mean? All these
and we
things.
like to queue.
Yeah.
So we queue. So
right.
we queue.
So let me ask a question about that as well.
Yeah.
In terms of, because for my generation, it literally really was one in, one out.
Yeah.
And it was this whole idea of there cannot be more than 2 of you. There cannot be
on
more
the radio and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So in terms of collaboration, one of the things that I feel quite inspired by now is that I feel like seeing the younger generation, it seems like you guys collaborate more. It seems like there's more of a network of professionals that you're like, yeah, you do that, I'm going to go over there and do this. You're hollering at that one, cool. I'm going to back this one up. Is that really what it is? Yeah. How do you guys feel about cultural gatekeepers? Because I feel that in this industry, there are gatekeepers within our industry that look like us.
There's less now.
Yeah, but I think the Komalis and the Lovelaces and the Travises and the Akeems and the Mikes and all of them, it's like they're like a bunch of ants and they're like, yeah, is that what we're doing? Okay, we're turning to termites, we'll take your building down.
Old school, you had if you talk to the rap, right?
Yeah.
Tim Westwood on Radio 1, Big Ted and Shorty Blitz on Kiss FM.
Yeah.
279 on Choice FM.
Yeah.
That was your 4-hour window
Yeah.
on a Friday night and a Saturday night.
Yeah.
To get played.
Yeah.
That was it.
That was it. Yeah.
So there was room for gatekeepers because literally you're holding the door.
Yeah.
Streaming, the internet, that's largely that's gone. There isn't that opportunity to do it, and they can't. I say they, and I hate when people do that, by the way. But like your ability to go into the market is not controlled anymore. You haven't got to buy X amount of 20,000 CDs to get into the distribution chain to be able to get into HMV. Like none of those things have you lived through. Do you get what I'm saying? Like you can put a tune out tomorrow.
Yeah.
On Apple, Spotify, etc. You could do that tomorrow without leaving your yard. You couldn't do that before. So the gatekeepers, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying there's not important people. There are important people who can assist you in what you're doing and who could make your journey quicker or longer depending on whether they give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down, but they can't stop you.
Absolutely.
Whereas before you could be stopped
Yeah.
by an invisible person, by the way, who you would never meet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think though there aren't so many gatekeepers, but I think some people are just stush. So you know, like we can romanticize it because obviously their generation have got a lot more privileges than we had. But I don't know, talking to young people, you'll still see like, oh, I tried to reach out to this person, oh, they just aired me, or, you know, like that kind of thing. And they'll wait for you to get to a certain metric before they'll start responding.
But you know what? I call them the Simons, though. I call them the Simons pretend to be Django's.
You have a metric to change their mind. We never had no metric.
It's
there wasn't a metric. It wasn't like, let me bring the glass. And now they've got to work with me. What metric? What are you talking about? Do you get what I'm saying? It's true. Go and get hot, man. Go and get hot, and then they're going to have to do it. Because also, what I do think about this generation, and I'm going to say it, there's a lot of entitlement. Because people ain't done nothing. I think everyone should answer their phone to you. Why?
Very true.
Why haven't I answered my phone to you? Why does blah blah have to post up your thing? Why? Do you know how much people there are who are sending you music every day?
Yeah, it's true.
And you think because I haven't listened to your song today or in the last 2 days that I'm dissing you?
Yeah.
I'll sit down.
You're just not lit enough, innit? Go get lit. And come back.
You know what's even funny? Even like with Riki and I, sometimes we have to call each other. Have you listened to that thing I've sent you yet? Literally. And we're friends.
Yeah, because
even with you as well. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll be like, Jay, have you listened to that?
Coming in.
Yeah, I was like, Komali, have you listened to the thing I've sent you yet? It's like a personal thing.
Drowning.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I ain't done it yet.
I sent you the tune 3 days ago. I'm like,
It's like, okay.
I had a youth on Instagram. He sent me like 100 songs on Instagram. I'm like, on Instagram, I didn't know you could do that. I swear to God, I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, this just looks like headache.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to remove myself from this chat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to it.
Yeah. That's not it.
It's just too much.
That's not it.
And like I often say to these kids, even at the panel you guys did the other day, when the kids were coming up to me, I say, look, if you really want to get through to me, keep emailing me, because what will happen is at some point your email will be at the top of my thing and I'll be like, oh, I can. And I said, don't send me more than 5 records, because when you send me more than 5, I'm now thinking, oh, I've got to take out an hour of my day.
Yeah.
And I don't really have an hour to give to myself.
Right.
Let alone to somebody I don't know.
So how many songs are optimal?
For me, 5.
I would say 3
because
to 5.
Because I listen from top to end.
No, I think 3 to 5.
Yeah.
If you're
3 to 5.
Yeah, 3 to 5. I want it on, ideally, a SoundCloud link, one that I can listen to on the move. Don't send me a Google Drive,
None
a
of that.
transfer.
None of that.
It's too hard to click, innit?
I need a one click. If I can't get in one click, you've lost
This
me.
is the
because-
generation thing.
No, because it's too much.
SoundCloud.
This is the generation.
Because SoundCloud is hard work for me.
Is it?
I need internet. I haven't always got internet.
Oh.
Okay, so how do you want them to send it?
I need an
CD?
MP3.
MP3.
I'm not criticising. I'm just saying that that's how savvy you are. That you can even work with the
Because then it just means that look, if I'm driving, I click it once,
It's
and it can play
it's
through the
just
whole
playing.
playlist.
Done.
I don't have to be like, oh, now I've got to stop at the red light. Cameras caught me.
I'm not on
that. Nah.
You send me an MP3, I'm gonna get to it.
And a little bit of information about who you are, your artist name, where I can find you on socials. Don't be like, yeah, yo, listen to my song. Who are you? What is this? Like, you know, yo, bruv.
Yeah.
Yo, bro. And like, all the time, it's like,
same here.
You're pasted. Yo, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely best practice. Whenever I do a talk and people ask that question, I literally say, that's how it's got to be. It has to be however you want it, but it needs to be one click. If you've got to click 6 times to listen to one song, I'm just over it. Like, I don't even think I like, I don't know if I like you. I don't know who you are. So, yeah, I think, no, but if you get 50 of those a day, it's just impossible.
I have 28 creative individuals who I'm responsible to, who I'm in working contractual relationships with, who send me music that I have to listen to anytime they send it. You think I've got space for
all of this?
I'm sorry. I don't have the capacity for that. So I will get to it, because we've always got to keep abreast, and that's what you have a team for as well. But it's like, I guess it's that thing in it. People only ever see from their perspective. But I said this 3 days ago.
3 days ago.
And you know, it's character building.
Happened in 3 days.
It's character building. You got to go through that, because you don't, like Riki said, you can't just be entitled just because you have a song doesn't mean that anyone has to listen, press play on it. You've got to. I think you've got to even work out if this is really what you want to do.
Absolutely.
Because if we let every artist that said that they were an artist have every single chance available to everyone, then we wouldn't find superstars in it. We'd all just be churning out songs. So yeah, I think it's part of it. I think you've got to be a bit determined, and you've got to work out how you're going to cut through, because the thing is with the internet and all the technology is there's so much noise, and now it's not just enough to be good. You've got to know how to articulate your story, your artistry, who you are, what you want to say.
Got to cut through the noise, man.
Exactly. And if you can't do that, then it's kind of, sadly, not pointless, but it's going to be hard for you. It might not be you, because you haven't worked that bit out yet.
It might just take you 7 years, and then you become central C.
Exactly. And that's cool too. But
and that's great.
But but even doing that process, you've got to work out that that's your path, rather than it happening for you right now. And I wanted to go back quickly, Michelle, on what you said about the one in, one out thing and gatekeepers and people that I feel, I'm going to do a shameless plug because we're actually doing it. But no, I would say in terms of black women and women of colour in the industry, we set up the Debrief for that reason. I think there was just a long time where, an older generation, it was a survival instinct, innit? It was just like, I'm here now, but if you come in, they're going to push me out. And that, it's you, innit? And so it becomes dog eat dog. And I think, the last 5 years, it has to change. And that was my experience. I was just like, but hold on, but why? Like, why should I not be able to call you or Jay and be like, oh, this happened, like, is this not mad? And so I set up the Debrief with Shah and Afriye for that reason, so that we have a network of women who we're one phone call away. Like, if I need someone in live, I can call Alexandra. Do you know what I mean? And be like, oh, like, what's happening with this? I've got a question about that. Or, you know, someone at Vivo, MTV, YouTube, whatever it is. And for us to all rely on each other and actually understand that there's a shared experience, and it's not just, you know, you can think you're going mad. It's like, my boss is moving away. Like, is that maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, or whatever. And sometimes it is. That's not to say that it's like this big conspiracy, but it's really important to have like that network and sense of community, because we are dealing with a unique set of issues. It's not enough to just have like, I don't know, she said so, which is, you know, feminism, and that's all great, but for black women, we're actually completely separate to the feminist movement. We get left out of that in so many ways. And so for me, the Debrief is really important to exist, because, I've watched friendships be formed, working relationships be formed. We can circulate job offers and opportunities and all these kinds of things. And it removes that element of being a threat to each other that just comes up because we're socialized that way. And I just think that it just has to go. And I pride myself on trying to be that for the women that are looking at me that I didn't even realise. I'm just here like head down trying to make it happen for myself. But, you know, there's people that it is an inspiration to. And then also the Black Music Coalition, where, it's just like, hold on, we need a central team that when there's certain issues arising in our personal, whatever level, that you feel like there's someone that can hear you and connect you or advocate on behalf of what you're doing. And we're obviously in our infancy, but I think what it can become and how needed it is to just have a space where us as black execs, again, aren't going, oh, I can't chat to him because he works at that label, or I tried to go for that artist and he, you know what I mean? It can't always, of course we're competitive people, but we need the space to actually be operating as amazing execs and be cutthroat and win the deals we want to win and but not have that go against each other as humans. It's just like, cool, in business, we all want to win and that's fine, but it can't come at the expense of our mental health, or you know what I mean, or cutting a man down, or you're cutting.
Yes.
It doesn't need to be all of that.
It
And
doesn't.
there's other, there's other groups that are allowed to operate that way. And when they're beating each other over, whatever deal, it's because of the deal. It's not because
Exactly.
I'm the top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and I want to that's what we're trying to push for, so that it's a level playing ground in the sense that we aren't battling against 10 things before the actual
The thing
war.
we're supposed to
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we can't be fighting. I can't be fighting all my teammates before I actually get there,
Get
because
there.
I'm dead already. Like I'm tattered. I'm cut open.
Yeah.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
I'm not even match fit at that point. So I think for me those are two organisations.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm
Thank
part of
you
them.
for
But
sharing that.
for me, I think it's really important. And just it's a change of attitude, isn't it? It's different.
Yeah.
We can't still be doing all of that because it just looks whack. And it's a divide and conquer thing. And I think as long as we're moving separately that way,
Absolutely.
we're not going to see the evolution that we hope to see in the next 10, 15, 20 years that
Absolutely.
we need. So that's
I,
It's
I
like-
wanted
it's
to
like-
actually ask what the impact, what do you guys feel is the impact of the influence of these kind of initiatives like BMC, like Bloom, like Power Up? Like, do you feel that there has been an impact over the last couple of years with these initiatives coming around?
And this is quite biased because I'm part of the Black Music Coalition. So I think that my view can be quite skewed because I'm aware. I talk to some young people and I don't think that they're aware. So I don't think that they have or feel or know that they have the access or that support.
Yeah.
Whereas I know it's there.
Yeah.
And we had an issue a couple of months back, which was when I realised that Komali.
Is a G.
Yeah.
With a G.
Yeah.
Right on, sister. Right on.
It was a scenario that two different companies that in all intensive purposes would be deemed or be at least pit against each other as competitors were going through the same issue at the same time with same set of people.
Yeah.
I
love this. Same issue, same time,
Yeah.
same set of people.
And
Okay.
so we had a shared problem, or a problem in common, and the BMC became a very safe place to air concerns, to discuss potential solutions, and to just have a conversation in a space that you could have the freedom to have that conversation, and it was very useful. There were learnings in that process that if we didn't have the conversation, you wouldn't even know, you wouldn't get the perspective to even consider, okay, maybe that's the way to deal with it, or maybe that's not the way to deal with it, or just what I'm saying. So even just having that and being able to get, the view of other seasoned executives, and furthermore, just the view of people who are smart was really helpful to get through that, because it was a really difficult and problematic set of circumstances that we were all trying our best to navigate. So I've seen it work in that sense, in a way that those who maybe don't feel a part of it or don't feel they've been included or whatnot. And by the way, you always get that. That's not a criticism that I think is specific to the BMC. There's always someone that feels left out and thinks it's deliberate, by the way. Half the time it isn't. It's not. You see what I mean? Like, it might have just genuinely been an oversight, but you can't convince people of that. But yeah, I think that I've seen it be helpful in that sense. I know that if it continues to grow in the way that, it plans to grow, it can become, and these types of things can become even more important, But we just have to always remember that we're all very different, by the way, and we come from very different places. And we come from completely different perspectives. Like, I'm always mindful that when you talk about stuff about, like you were saying earlier about, being able to share jobs and that kind of support, because I've never been in that kind of part of the industry. I've never been a part of a group like that, but neither has there ever been anything that's, do you see what I mean? Like, and so when I'm having conversations with others, I always have to be very mindful that we've approached this thing, although it's the same thing, our journeys to it have been so different that our experiences are naturally going to be different and our outlook's going to be different. It doesn't make yours right and mine wrong or vice versa.
Yeah.
It's just
a different room.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
it. Yeah.
And I think that's what's really important, having that mindfulness to understand that it's different. So, you know, and just seeking that wisdom, because like for me, I can call you Komali and say, oh, I'm going through this in corporate land, and you'd be like, oh, Jay, yeah, that's normal, and blah 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 blah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
you know, and you're young enough to be my child. And then I might call Riki and say, Riki, that guy over there, Jay, do you need me to call him? Yes, please, Riki. Because if I call him, but you know, it's having that and knowing that and I think that's why it's important to create these safe spaces for people, so they have people that they can go and talk to. And whether it's a mentor, whether it's a colleague that's just maybe further ahead, they could be younger than you, but they've been in the system longer. Who can just give you advice. You don't even have to take the advice, but at least hear it.
Navigating a corporation is
different.
a real thing. Like my thing with Glenn works so well because we are so different. We approach things from completely different headspaces, and we both, the reason why it works so well is because we've got enough respect for what each of us do and have done, that if your way is the right way for that, we're just going your way. It's not my way or your way. Do you get what I'm saying? If we
the best way. Whatever the best way is.
We got to navigate some politics in the company. He's probably better placed. I might just say the wrong thing. Do you get what I'm saying?
And not care.
And not care. Right? But I should have cared. But I should have cared. And there was another way to achieve that without
all of that.
Burning down all those bridges.
Yeah, so it's super important. And likewise, there's times when it's like, that day's over, we're not doing that anymore. We're just going to do it ourselves, and we'll ask for forgiveness later because we're just not asking for permission.
Exactly.
So and there's a time, but there's a time for both.
Yes.
There's a time for both. And if you, especially if you want to exist as we do within a corporation, you can't think you're not going to adhere to anything that.
Absolutely.
You're just, you're confusing yourself if you think that's going to work.
Because rules are for a reason. Otherwise, you have anarchy, and who wants anarchy at the end of the day?
Yeah.
Do you guys have mentors? And how important do you think mentors are?
I have mentors.
You have mentors. I have mentors.
I think mentors are super important. I had mentors, and I've been on the lookout for the last, I'm going to say maybe 2 years for.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For a mentor or a mentee?
Mentor or mentee?
For a mentor.
Okay.
Oh, for a mentor.
I mentee people, but you have to. You can't give and not get.
Yes.
Like
Absolutely.
there's loads that I
really
can.
just trying those.
Yes.
Seasoned, isn't it?
No, you need
my notebook.
You need to be poured in, and every season's a new season. You start at zero.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how much goals you scored last season.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, you got this season. You know what I
true.
mean? And as things are changing, you want to do different things. You want to evolve and do different things. How am I supposed to? Why should I know that? Because I've been doing this for X amount of years. Why does it
You're
mean
not
I
going to know that.
Yeah.
You with me?
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
there comes a time
So
where I
true.
think that we all could do with, that extra bit of insight and to learn. Because the minute you stop learning is when you're dead. Like
Absolutely.
you're finished when you stop learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think mentors are really important. Like everyone talks about 10,000 hours,
Yes.
but the part they miss out is the part where you're getting feedback whilst you're doing what you're
Yeah,
doing.
while
And
you're
only
doing
a
those
mentor
10,000
can give you that.
hours. Yeah.
So
Very
yeah,
true.
I've always had mentors, but I haven't been lucky enough to have a mentor in music. But I'd love a mentor in music as well, a bit like Riki.
You now, what would you, knowing everything that you know now, what would you say to your younger self?
Listen more.
Listen more.
It's not that deep.
It's not that deep, okay?
It's gonna happen.
It's going to happen.
Just keep going. It's gonna happen.
Use your imagination. Keep using your imagination.
I think trust yourself and block out some of the noise. Not all of it, but yeah, you know what you know, innit? And people will tell you that that's not enough, or you're too green or too whatever, but it doesn't really matter because you learn all the other stuff, just like they had to learn it. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it shouldn't like shake your confidence that you don't have 25 years of experience. Like, why would you when you're 21? Like,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? It's just, yeah.
And that's what I mean by it's not that deep. Like all these barriers, it's like no.
Yeah,
You
it
only know
works
what you
out.
know at that time.
Yeah.
So don't kill yourself for not knowing it, because you only know what you know.
Yeah.
Debs?
Yeah, I think it's having the confidence to really believe in yourself as well, sort of like to piggyback off what Komali said. But it's like, I think I always believed in myself, but like as I touched on, that there was a little bit of arrogance and just learning that humility. You know, like when you really believe in yourself, you don't have to shout it from the rooftops. Do you know what I mean? Just having that real inner self-confidence, that self-love. It's not bravado. It's just like that real inner confidence.
I love that. I love that.
And for yourself?
Yeah, what were you going to say?
For myself, I'd probably say don't stop dreaming, because I think sometimes we get so responsible that we actually stop dreaming. We stop striving for things. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, I would say never stop dreaming. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
Being
Thank
here
you.
and speaking with us. Pleasure.
Thank you.